Nancy, hey, congratulations on your documentary. How do you pronounce this? Pasang?
It's Pasang Lhamu Sherpa.
Okay, Pasang in the Shadow of Everest is the name of your documentary. Well,
Yes.
anyway, congratulations on this documentary, but more of a congratulations that you're showcasing this at the upcoming Santa Barbara International Film Festival. How do you feel about that?
It's hard to express. I am so thrilled. This has been a 10-year project for me. And so when Claudia Puig, the head of programming at Santa Barbara, reached out to me early and said that she loved the film and she wanted to offer me a spot to have our world premiere in Santa Barbara, I was so thrilled. And now it's next week, and there's a lot of emotions running through my head, I will say, but I'm absolutely thrilled at the opportunity.
Wow. This sounds like a long journey for yourself. So what sparked you to make this documentary?
Well, I heard the story from my brother-in-law. So my brother-in-law's name is untold Sherpa. He's married to my sister. They live here in Northern California, close by. And, shortly after they were married, Dorji, one night at dinner, told me about his sister. And it was one of those amazing stories that just sticks with you. It's just, she, I think, was such a charismatic woman, and she was this national hero in Nepal that nobody outside of Nepal had heard anything about. And so I was really drawn to the story. I was really drawn to her as a person, and to the challenges that she had to overcome to do that. And so I carried that around a bit, and then in the end, decided to make the film about her.
Was it easy to convince the rest of the family to participate in your filming?
Yeah, for the most part, everybody was very helpful. I mean, Dorji actually had wanted to make a film years ago, and went to Nepal with another filmmaker, Rick Tejada Flores, a local Bay Area filmmaker, and they shot some footage or some interviews of Vicente Franco was the cinematographer, but then they couldn't get funding for the film, and it just, everything went into a box up on the shelf. And so Dorji had this idea, and I said, well, I think that we can make a film. And he really did help me in terms of introductions to the family. And the family was incredibly gracious about giving me all kinds of archival material that they had. But I mean, recognizing that Pasang grew up in a very poor family up in, a small town in the Himalayas. They didn't have electricity, running water, and they didn't have a camera. So there were no photos of her as a child. There were no home movies, anything like that. But the family was wonderful. And certainly her daughter, Dawa, who's coming to the premiere, she's an executive producer on the film as well. She has been incredibly helpful about sharing her memories and introducing me to folks. And so, yeah, I think that the family is pleased to have this film finally finished.
It's amazing, is because just by watching this documentary, you made it sound like it's hard to find the archival footage, but it sounds, just watching this documentary, it seems like there's a lot of footage.
Well, yes, thank you. I'm so glad you feel that way. I mean, I will say that it was quite a treasure hunt to find all of this footage. It was honestly one of these things where I would go and follow up on one lead and speak with somebody. Dallas said, oh, you should have lunch with my aunt. She might have some pictures. And so I would go have lunch with the aunt, and she'd say, oh, I think I have some photos. And she'd go get her scrapbook and she would give them to me. But the person you really need to talk to is so-and-so. And I did that over and over again, both in Nepal, but also in France, because a part of her story really did take place in France. And so following up one lead led to another, and people were so generous about going through their closets and finding these old high 8 tapes and sending them to me from France. And so yes, I mean, I think that and I had some amazing help from my producer, Sharon Wood, and a couple archival experts in terms of gathering, what was happening in the world, all of that, what was happening politically in Nepal. But it was quite a, I would say, treasure hunt, and sort of piecing the puzzle together one piece at a time.
Was it a challenge on trying to, clean up some of those old footages from the 90s, to make it much more clear for a documentary today?
Oh my goodness. Yes, our Robert at Lateral Films, our online person, did amazing work in terms of bringing, better resolution to some of that really old footage. I mean, some of it you can see is still quite grainy. But yeah, my editor, Jeffrey Friedman, was just amazing at, his eye for, what is going to fit where was incredible. But it was a lot of technical work to get the archival to look as good as it looks today. So
now, I'm just taking a wild guess here, but you didn't really have to travel to Nepal to gain, to do anything for this documentary. Am I correct?
oh no, I did. I went to
You did.
Nepal 3 times, 3 shoots in Nepal. Yeah. So I wasn't, obviously this all took place in the 90s. Pasang's last climb was in 1993, but I went to Nepal various times. At the beginning, it was really about building a relationship with the family and building the trust there that I, could be trusted, with the story. But I did, like, for instance, I mean, on my last shoot, we had worked really hard, my producers behind the scene, to find out who some of these reporters that we could see on this old Nepali TV archival footage were, and where they were today, because I wanted to talk to them. So Richard Levine was one of my producers, and he took these old 1990, newspaper or clips from this old Nepali TV footage and tried to literally sent it around to people in Nepal. Do you know who this is? Who is it? And we found these reporters. And so then when I went and I met them, and for instance, this particular reporter named Raju Silwal, he's the guy who really made Pasang famous, because he kind of discovered her. And so I have this, archival footage from 1992 of him as a young man interviewing her on this climbing wall. And then I have him as a 50-some-year-old man, back at the same climbing wall, remembering interviewing Pasang. So I also the Sherpas that were with her when she died, I had to find them. And they'd never spoken about it publicly either. And so, yes, I very definitely did have field work in Nepal.
Well, it's fortunate you didn't have to climb Everest yourself to gain B-roll footage or anything.
Yeah, no, that is not among my goals, especially after spending, so much time over the years learning about how treacherous the mountain is.
Well, you know what? It is quite an adventure just to try to match things that happened over 30 years ago. I can't even find articles that I wrote back in the mid-90s myself. So, you know what? Kudos to you for doing something like this. Now, during your process of research and journey, what was the most amazing thing that you learned about her?
Well, I think one of the things that is so striking about Pasang is that when she started this her dream to climb Everest is sort of the natural progression of where she came from, right? I mean, she came from this small town. She was never allowed to go to school. She couldn't read or write. So what is she going to be able to do in the world? Well, she is in the shadow of Everest. She can climb. And so it started as a very personal goal for her, I think. But one of the things that was so fascinating to me as I traced her journey, she went with her husband to France. And at the time, this was after she'd run away, from the village, come to Kathmandu. They began to make a life for themselves. They started this trekking company, and they were trying to drum up business. Well, he took his wife with him. She insisted on going with him to France. And there she saw this whole new world of all these other climbers. She said, why do these women, French women, want to come to climb Everest? I mean, it was as if I was watching her world open up, in front of my eyes as I was tracing her journey. And I think that was the most moving and interesting thing, is to, even though there's not one moment that you see on camera when you see that she had this kind of political awakening, it was watching her as she moved from a very personal goal to finding that this goal of climbing Everest meant so much to the women of her country, and to those people who didn't have the courage to do what she was doing.
I was going to say was that the events that led to her journey happened more than three decades ago. And with the newer generation, and since then, as your documentary pointed out, 65 other women has actually made that climb. Is she still relevant and considered as a national hero today in Nepal for this new generation?
She is, and I've talked to a lot of those women on camera and off camera, and she is absolutely revered as the person who broke the path for them, and she is as well one of the national heroes. There's really the two biggest national heroes in Nepal today are Tenzing Norgay, who summited Everest with Sir Edmund Hillary in 1953, and Pasang Lhamu Sherpa. And there's a life-size statue of her in Kathmandu. There's a big road around the city that is named for her. She's on a postage stamp. They named a mountain after her. They actually teach about her in school. So I was in Kathmandu filming a classroom of middle school kids who were learning about one of their national luminaries, Pasang Lhamu Sherpa. So she is definitely well known in Kathmandu, in Nepal. I think what this film does, though, is it gives a much richer portrait of who she really was as a person. And I think that is important for people to see behind the statue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense, and it's a great story to know, especially for for people who want to see a woman who is trying to break down those barriers, especially in Nepal over there.
Mm-hmm.
So Nancy, let me wrap with one more thing, as this documentary is going to premiere at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival in about a week, and hopefully more audiences get to see. What is the one most important lesson or takeaway that you hope people would get after watching your film?
Yeah, I think what Pasang would have told them is to believe in yourself and believe in your dream, or whatever that may be, and to not let people discourage you or tell you that it's not possible.
That would be a great takeaway, and you could take that certainly from your film. Well, Nancy, thank you very much for carrying this conversation with us about your film. It's a very fascinating film, and it's a very fascinating story, and a lot of people should actually watch it.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed speaking with you.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.